Hello, good afternoon. This is the Midday News. The news is live on Joy 99.7 in Accra, Love 99.5 in Kumasi, and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Radio Justice Tamale, Radio Kpando Kpando, Fafa Radio Joje, and Data FM Karaga. We are live on Twitter Spaces, Facebook live stream, and my Joy Online interactive app. The Midday News is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. And Duraplast Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC and HDPE pipes and water tank. Where Duraplast goes, water flows. Coming up, more criticism of Attorney General's report, which recommended no prosecution for some senior government officials and politicians implicated in Professor Frimpong Boateng's Galamsey report. The NDC says the AG is involved in a cover-up.
Yet another attempt by this Attorney General to cover up clear acts of corruption on the part of government officials and members of the ruling UP35.
So how can this Frimpong Boateng report just within a few months, they say they finished? It's whitewashing.
Well, did the AG do a thorough job? The Attorney General, Godfrey Dame, is live with us to respond to the criticisms. Also, more trouble for Cecilia Dapas. The United States FBI opens concurrent probe with a special prosecutor to examine the assets and financial transactions of the former minister and her associates within the U.S. We have details. We'll also be live in court when Accra High Court is expected to rule on the former minister's application for an expeditious hearing into the case on the freezing of her accounts. Also in this package, tensions rise as Parliament's ad hoc committee chairman clashes with IGP's lawyers over accusations of bias. More as in-camera hearings adjourned indefinitely.
The generality of Ghanaians believe that I've steered the affairs of the committee well. And if anybody is having jitters, I'm going to sort of manufacture evidence against the IGP. It has no accord with common sense.
But the lawyers stand their grounds, insisting the evidence currently being submitted to the committee is inconsequential.
The fresh evidence may or may not come. The chairman requested that the witnesses who have appeared before the committee, if they still had evidence which is relevant for the attainment of the terms of reference, they should furnish the committee.
We'll also hear from Bugri Nabu, who insists the tape is not doctored. And in sports,
the Black Stars camp is hit with injuries ahead of the two upcoming friendlies.
And potential disaster looms at Tema Oil Refinery as erosion threatens integrity of main petroleum pipelines. Residents demand urgent action to prevent a disaster.
I'm calling for immediate action to solve this problem. This fence wall have to be pulled down immediately. We should not wait for a disaster.
Thanks for choosing us. We are Joy News, independent, fearless and credible. I'm Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. Thanks for your company. The details now. This afternoon, there are more criticisms of the report authored by the Office of the Attorney General on claims by former Environment Minister Professor Frimpong Boateng that some senior government officials and politicians are involved in illegal mining, also known as Galamsey. According to the Attorney General, the former minister refused to provide any evidence to back his claims, and he's recommended that no prosecution be undertaken against some of the ministers and other government officials. As mentioned by the professor, private legal practitioner Martin Pibu has described the AG's report as incomplete and a whitewash.
For these ones that he's seeking to discharge upon Nkrumah and the rest, CID, they are usually seen as part of the executive, so they won't do anything to rock the boat. So it's for us citizens to lodge another criminal complaint, or we as a public, we can demonstrate or do other things to put pressure on the AG to reverse this opinion, because this opinion is incomplete. They need to go to the forest and check. The report, the opinion doesn't talk about investigations in the forest. You don't need Frimpong Boateng to come to give you any further details. No.
Right.
No. Not at all. So how can this Frimpong Boateng report just within a few months, they say they finished? It's whitewashing.
Well, the latest to join the criticism is the opposition NDC. They've described the Attorney General's report as an attempt to cover up corruption in the Akufo-Addo administration. Sami Jemfi is National Communications Officer of the party.
We never made any call on the Attorney General since this government took office. You and I have never seen this Attorney General prosecute any official of this government or member of the ruling party for any act of corruption. He's not done so because he's not interested in fighting corruption. neither is he interested in protecting the interest of it. This latest advice from his office on the Frimpong Boateng report, damning report, is yet another attempt by this Attorney General to cover up clear acts of corruption on the part of government officials and members of the ruling UP party.
So what more can we learn from the AG's work in this matter? Thankfully, we've been joined by Godfred Yaboadami, who is Minister for the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice. Good afternoon for your time, sir. Thank you for joining us. Now, you've heard these criticisms, a cover-up, a whitewash. What exactly did your office do in regards to examining what was sent to you by the police CID and coming up with this response?
Well, good afternoon to your listeners. I think it's very important for me to place on record that I come on the telephone not to respond to any abusive comments by some political actors, no matter how junior they are at the bar or how unenlightened they are on the relevant issues. And also, it's also important for me to also place on record that my work as Attorney General, yes, I may have been appointed by a president, but the discharge of my duties as Attorney General, and indeed that of the entire office, is not political at all. We have many professionals, well-trained and seasoned state attorneys who work day and night to protect the interests of the state. The advice the CID, which is the subject matter of your interview, clearly shows was signed by a chief state attorney, very well-trained, and who was even a teacher of Sami Jemfi, who was just called to about 3-4 years ago, or perhaps 2 years ago. Now, the point I make first and foremost is that the Office of Attorney General regularly reviews dockets by the CID, and that is in pursuance of our constitutional mandate as a principal legal advisor to the government under Article 88 of the Constitution. So this review of a docket by the CID is nothing unusual to start with. And indeed, the review was specific in relation to allegations contained in the Professor Frimpong Boateng report. The professor had made specific allegations against named individuals in his report. The president had directed the CID to investigate the allegations. The CID of Ghana Police Service indeed built a docket after critically going through a process of interviewing and indeed examining all the persons who were named in the report. Each of the individuals named in the report, a statement was taken from them. A statement was taken from each of the individuals mentioned in the report and against whom allegations have been made by Professor Frimpong Boateng. In the statements given by each of the individuals, they categorically denied any allegation against them.
But that is expected, isn't it?
Hold on. Precisely. So then what is the burden? The burden then is to investigate the matter further. And who was in a better position to assist the CID with the conduct of investigations than the person who alleges that these individuals were engaged in wrongdoing? And the professor clearly, as recorded in the docket of the CID, refused to cooperate. A number of attempts were made to take statements from him. He even refused to give a written statement. He stated that he was relying on the bare allegations contained in his report. The CID proceeded further to probe all the allegations against each of the individuals. And they could not unearth anything at all. Indeed, I request of you, the media who perhaps are giving vent to all these unfounded allegations made by people, to supply any piece of evidence against any individual named in the report which has not been discussed or examined by the Attorney General in the advice to the CID.
Mr. Dame, permit me.
So clearly, I think it's also important to state that the work of the Attorney General is not subject to some political commentary on radio anywhere at all. It is actually a very serious matter, and the dockets are built on the strength of evidence that has been properly unearthed through proper investigations. If there's no evidence against the person, it's actually the height of injustice
beyond the
for you to suggest that there should be a charge or two against such a person. What is the evidence in support of any of the allegations contained in the report? Absolutely none at all.
Right.
And that is the issue at stake.
Right.
So I think the pertinent question for you to ask, a media person, of those who are making wild allegations in the media to furnish me with any evidence that they have against any individual here named in the report.
Well noted, Mr. Dami. But on the last page of that letter signed by Evelyn D. Kilson, Chief State Attorney for the Attorney General, in fact, it does mention that the police did not find any evidence. Let me quote: investigations by the police have not revealed any evidence in support of the allegations. In time past, you would have had the police give us details of their own investigations into the matter, for which reason they think that the allegations made by Professor Frimpong Boateng are baseless. But now we don't have the privilege of knowing that. Would you advise the police to do that so that...
Have you made a request to the police? We live in this era of right to information and all that. I get regular requests for information from Joy FM, Akable, even recently. Requested for information for me in respect of cases I'm doing, Woyome and what have you. And I've furnished them with the information. Have you or any member of Joy FM requested the CID for information at all? The case here is just simple. A situation where a docket was regularly presented to the Attorney General for review. CID had concluded its investigations in the matter, had made clear findings even before bringing the docket for our review.
Right. So
that there was no evidence against any of the persons. And indeed, many a time, we sometimes we overturn the findings of CID and say, no, we recommend prosecution against this person. We rather recommend prosecution against that person and that kind of thing.
Right. But Mr. Dame, I mean, lastly, we also know that the OSP is relying on Mr. Frimpong Boateng's documents, right? But, such pronouncements and all we are seeing within the media space, don't you believe will affect the work of the OSP?
Are you suggesting to me that my work as a Tinjura can in any way prejudice the work of the OSP? How you look at the Constitution, as a great to the Constitution, all prosecutorial authority in the country is versus the Tinjura. And understand you to be suggesting that when I am discharging my constitutional functions as a Tinjura, I should render myself subject to what the OSP is doing. The OSP's mandate is very narrow and limited to a specific issue, and I do not concern myself with what the OSP is doing. My concern is discharging my duties under the Constitution. I do not concern myself with what the OSP is doing, and indeed I have no idea at all what he's doing. He's free, he's at liberty. I've never instructed him on any matter at all. The record shows that record will show that I've given him absolute liberty and independence to conduct whatever work he does, and indeed he's proceeding. My inquiry was on whether criminal charges can be sustained against any of the individuals named in the report here. And I think that's the most important thing. And indeed, on the question as to, it's also important to clarify, first and foremost, that the report or the docket presented by CID was not a general docket on Galamsey cases in the country. Definitely not at all. The docket by CID was specific. It bordered on whether these named or specified individuals, there was a case against them to be filed in court. And that was it. In respect of general Galamsey cases in the country, recently, even just last week, it was reported in Daily Graphic, 25 persons have been convicted of Galamsey offences in Western region and what have you. Presently, there are about 120 cases involving Galamsey that are being prosecuted by the Office of Attorney General. And all those 120 cases involve about 800 people. And indeed, you have people who have been prosecuted for mining in forest zones. I think last week, when the report was made about the conviction by the court in
clearly
Western region.
Yes, please. So
if you look at the report clearly, it showed conviction for people, or conviction for mining in forest zones. Specifically, there was conviction of certain persons who had mined along the Ankobra River, persons who had also mined in an area described as the Dumfree Forest Reserve in Tapa and all.
Right, that's Godfrey Abu-Baidoo. We appreciate your time, Mr. Dami. He's the Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Well, this afternoon, the troubles of former Sanitation Minister Cecilia Dapa are deepening as the Federal Bureau of Investigations, that's the FBI of the United States of America, becomes the latest investigative agency to open a probe into her assets. The FBI is conducting this probe concurrently with Ghana's Special Prosecutor. Kwekwa Santi of our Legal Desk Affairs joins me in studio with some details. Kweku, this is information that has just come to our attention. What is the scope of this probe by the FBI?
Well, according to the special prosecutor, the FBI have initiated concurrent inquiries into the activities of Cecilia Abinadapa, the former Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, and her associates. These investigations primarily focus on examining their assets and financial transactions within the United States of America. This collaborative effort is to ascertain the lawfulness of Ms. Dapa and her associates' wealth, both in the context of their fund transitioning from Ghana to the US and vice versa. And we know that Cecilia Dapa is in court today. Tomorrow, she is to appear before the court for a plea to be taken in respect of one count of failure to declare property and income. On Monday, the court is to hear an application by the OSP seeking leave to add additional evidence uncovered against Madam Cecilia Dapa. And before all this, Ms. Dapa yesterday was in court to file a human rights action and an application for injunction to stop the OSP from investigating her. That application will be heard on the 13th of November.
Oh, well, let's go to court now. My colleague Richard Kojonyako is there for us. Richard, the lawyers of the former sanitation ministers say they want an expedited trial in that case on the freezing of her account. What's the basis of this?
Well, so they say they want the process to be quickened to mitigate the hardships, the seizure and freezing of the account of Madam Cecilia Dapa by the OSP on her. They contend that the current pace at which things are going is really having a huge toll on Madam Dapa because her cash has been seized and her account has been frozen. And so that is their basis.
Right. So what has the response of the OSP been?
Well, so as expected, the OSP responded. First, it said it's incorrect for Madam Dapa's lawyers to call their application for confirmation of seizure and freezing of the account a repeated application. The lawyers say the current application for the abridgment of time is only riding on a misconception that the substantive application is a mere repeat application. They say the substantive application is a fresh process unfettered by any prior consideration and fly in the face of the process and the law should the court goes ahead to grant such an application.
Finally, Richard, was Madam Cecilia Dapa in court today, and when should we expect a ruling on this application?
Well, so Madam Cecilia Dapa was in court. Her husband too was in court. Both sat in front of where I sat. She was clad in all black slate, black kaba, and black headgear or scarf, and held her husband's hand. The court presided over by Justice Igochum has risen and will be back at 3 p.m. to give his ruling.
Richard Kojonyako there joining us from the courts. This is the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM. A standoff has ensued between lawyers for the IGP and chairman of Parliament's ad hoc committee probing the alleged plot to remove the IGP. The tension was triggered by allegations of the IGP's lawyers that Samuel Atachia has been biased and he has a sinister agenda against their client. But Mr. Atachia would not take such allegations lightly. He descended heavily on the lawyers, he says, have attempted to drag his name into disrepute and has demanded an apology. Before we take you to Parliament for details, here are comments by lead counsel for the IGP, Kwame Jan.
Our expectations are that the proceedings would go on normally. We expect the chairman to make some unilateral decisions and we would raise objections where necessary. Apart from that, we are not expecting any bombshells.
You're not expecting bombshells?
No.
But you are raising concerns about extraneous witnesses.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. That the chairman might want to do that. And we would use the legal means to resist that.
Lead counsel for the IGP, Kwame Jan, speaking to my colleague Samuel Imbura. Samuel is in Parliament for us and joins us with details. Samuel, tell us what exactly happened when chairman of the committee met the lawyers of the IGP.
Well, there was a conference between the lawyers of the IGP when the chairman of the committee, Samuel Atachia, arrived. And then he approached them and was not quite happy about the comment that he has been hearing on the media about the lawyers accusing him of being biased. And he said he least expected that one would be coming from the camp of lawyer Kwame Jan, and he actually expressed his revulsion against their comments and indicated that he was going to strongly raise the issue before the committee. So there was a bit of a conversation between them before the meeting started. We could see that the chairman wasn't happy about the accusations before the meeting started.
Right, and in Bureau, you spoke to the lawyers of the IGP after this encounter with the chairman. What did they tell you?
Well, they were still standing their ground and indicated that given the opportunity, they'll raise the issues and they don't regret making such comments.
This is also an important assignment. It's about time management and so on and so forth. When he is physically able to show up, he will come. So the lawyers are here, and we are going up for the proceedings to commence.
We are told you are to expect fresh evidence from witnesses today. That is the goal.
We won't say we are expecting. The fresh evidence may or may not come.
Well, Mr. Bugri Nabu has also been speaking at that committee. He's insisting the tape is not doctored.
Because I present the tape, and the committee have the tape now with them, and they play it, and they say, yes, it's true. They actually speak to me. So I want to tell you, I want them to committee to see it, but the committee says they want to conclude before they come out. But as a chief, and which day I told you that, which he wouldn't tell us, after all what they want. I was in my office, they came. I didn't beg them to come. And all what they come to say, I think it was very, very important. And for the state secret, for MPP government, to have that kind of thing going on in the police service is very dangerous.
Bugri Nabu is a star witness in that case in which Parliament's ad hoc committee is hearing an alleged plot to oust the IGP. Still to come here on the Midday News, potential disaster looms at Tema Oil Refinery as erosion threatens integrity of main petroleum pipelines. Residents demand urgent action to prevent a disaster.
I'm calling for immediate action to solve this problem. This fence wall have to be pulled down immediately. We should not wait for a disaster.
When budgets are tight and money difficult to come by, you want to be sure you get the best value for your money. These are not times to be spending money fixing expensive engine problems because of cheap fuel and lubricants. Drive to a petrol source station today and buy your quality fuel and lubricants, and rest assured of fuel that lasts long and lubricants that prevent expensive engine problems. Hear the sound. Petrosol, clean fuel in full quantity.
Imagine say water wake up at dawn, e no bath, e no chop, where e vanish for your area for 2 weeks. You no get one drop safe inside your tank.
Hey.
Hajia, our life was in dangerous. Only our neighbor get water with water tank.
Water tank?
Yes, water tank. Mamma mia, that water tank get meter for checking water level. That water tank be fine past Kumasi Selendion. That water tank be tough like Ghana Army. That water tank, they carry water pepe, so say some no go left inside the supply tank. What a tank! As my boss, Mr. Poncho, go talk.
Beautiful, durable, with water level indicator and accurate volume of water. Water tank. What a tank! By Duraplast.
Thanks for staying on the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM. It's now time for sports, and Mubarak is here. There's some bad news for our Black Stars team, right?
It's quite unfortunate because it's not the start of the preparations Black Stars coach Chris Houghton was hoping for, because out of the 23 players selected for the friendlies against Mexico and the United States, only 19 were available and participated in yesterday's training session. Now, injuries to Tariq Lamptey, Daniel Amate, Alexander Jiku and Osman Bukar have forced the quartet out of the two friendlies. To fill the void, late call-ups were extended to Kingsley Schindler, Jerome Opoku and Stefan Ambrosius. Remember, the Black Stars are scheduled to play Mexico this coming Saturday before the clash against the United States next week, Tuesday.
Thanks, Mubarak. Now, there's imminent disaster at the Tema Oil Refinery tour as persistent erosion of a storm drain, which serves as a passage for several petroleum pipelines into the refinery, is gradually causing it to give way. To compound the problem, a portion of the refinery's fence wall, situated directly on the pipelines, has also developed deep cracks. A fortnight ago, a fire gutted the same pipelines just meters away from the refinery. While that should have served as a wake-up call, a concerned Ghanaian who's observed the situation over the last year insists immediate action is required to avert any disaster.
There's a big drainage very close to their fence wall, and there's a pipeline also that passes on top of the drainage. The drainage. So the water that very day, the water in the drainage was touching the pipeline that carries fuel into top. For touching it, and we realized that the current, if it's more heavy, may even affect the base that is holding the pipeline. It's touching it. The water was touching it, and we said to ourselves, if this continue, another rain continue, it may affect the whole, how do you call it, pipeline over there.
You heard from a concerned Ghanaian. Let's now hear from my colleague Carlos Coloni, who is on standby for us at all. Carlos, which part of the refinery is this happening at, and how serious is the problem?
All right, Bernice. So this is happening at the edge of the refinery. You know, when you're heading towards the refinery on your left, there's a wall, and these pipelines that run all the way from the Tama Harbour to the refinery. That is the specific place that this is happening. Indeed, I can say for a fact that deep cracks have been seen in the wall there, and the foundation of the wall is actually being washed away. And so I have been speaking with the PRO of the Tama Oil Refining Matilda, who tells me that, yes, this has come to their attention and some measures are being put in place.
So this issue came to our attention about a year ago, and it's been on the table. We meet at operational meetings, and we had the maintenance team aware, and they took the proactive steps, knowing the danger it could pose. And the proactive steps taken is that the well has been reconstructed 2 meters inside the refinery. So what we see actually out here is what might, portray to people that we have broken or the walls have holes in it. But the walls have been reconstructed.
You heard the PRO of the Tema Oil Refinery. Now, aggrieved customers of the Gold Coast Fund Management are threatened to block workers of the Finance Ministry from leaving their offices as they continue their 48-hour non-stop picketing. They are demanding their locked-up funds. The customers are also demanding the disbursement of their locked-up funds, but members are yet to receive 8.6 billion cedis approved by Parliament to pay them. The Securities and Exchange Commission revoked the company's operating license in 2019 as part of government's financial sector cleanup. Maxwell Agbagba was there this afternoon and reports.
Tired faces here at the Ministry of Finance. A woman just started crying here. It's been more than 24 hours since the grieved customers of the defunct Gold Coast Fund Management started picketing the Finance Ministry to demand their locked up funds, and they are still here. Around 10 p.m. when we visited yesterday, some of them slept on the hard concrete floor in chairs and any spot they could find. The 2 mobile toilets they came with were also busy. Although they look tired, they are not tired of holding their placards.
You were crying because of my money. Because of my money. I need money to pay my children's school fees. I don't have, whilst I have money here. That's why I'm crying. I'm pleading for them to see us. They should have pity on us and give us our money.
Maxwell Agbagba with that report. Now, recent data from air monitors has exposed a startling reality. Some of Accra's largest markets, including Agbogbloshie, Mokola, Nima and Medina, are among the city's most polluted areas, particularly on market days. In our latest series on air quality and pollution, we uncover the alarming truth about the air these market goers breathe and why a simple visit to the market may now require a protective mask. Their findings are a stark reminder that what shoppers take home from these markets may include more than they bargained for, a cocktail of pollutants with every purchase. Beat reporter Michael Ashali has more.
In the early morning hours at Agbogbloshie Market, a thick cloud of plumes fills the air. This bustling market is already witnessing a steady stream of visitors. The hazy atmosphere contains lethal cocktails of pollutants, many of which are invisible to the naked eye. The grim reality is that unsuspecting patrons frequenting the market unknowingly inhale exceedingly polluted air.
When you come to the market, what's the first thing that hits you?
Air pollution, the environment, deaths. I mean, it's very bad, very, very bad, extremely bad.
Caroline Menta is among the multitude of individuals who frequent Agbogboloshe for their everyday household necessities. She acknowledges the possibility that pollutants could have contaminated some of the food items sold there. Nevertheless, for her and many others, economic considerations often take precedence over health concerns.
The prices are reasonable, so that's why we all come here.
Michael Ashali with that report. And before I go, residents and communities affected by the spillage of excess water from the Kosumbu Dam are asking managers of the Volta River Authority to reduce the volume of water being spilled. As of this morning, reports from the Tong and Anglor districts in the Volta region show that floods have washed away homes, blocked roads and destroyed properties. It's also brought business activities to a standstill. Assemblyman for the Sokboy area, Edmond Fingaro, sums up the situation there.
It has entered into people's house, people's shop, people's farm, and it has destroyed a lot of farm products, big farms and properties and others. A hotel has been overfull and they have to move everything from the room. A small island at the Wume area there, it has been carried away by the village. It's affecting students to come to school because a creek at their end has been overflowed and the footbridge on it too, they can't walk on it. So we have to use canoe to bring them to school, which is also something that is not encouraging. If you don't
Edmund Fingaro, the assemblyman for the Sokbe area, ending this edition of the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM, brought to you by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. And Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC and HDP pipes and water tank. With Duraplus goes, water flows. I'm Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. Thanks for your company. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Do stay with us. Up next is Pastor Menso Table with Living Word.